To resume recording, just so you know, it is being recorded and you are here. So thank y'all for showing up. I know it is hard nowadays because the world is opening back up. So it just getting on these Zooms are still presenting a little challenge. So change your board into a fundraising powerhouse. That is our topic for today. And I always say, are you frustrated with your board? Some people even questioning why they need a board. But I say it's time to stop struggling to get your board of directors involved in helping in the organization fundraising. But there's some things that we do have to realize that few, if any, board members join a board because it's a great they join the board. Few, if any, join the board because it's a great opportunity to fundraise. Yet all board members are expected to fundraise. That is how it comes across. So where nonprofits fail their board members is in expecting great results with no training. And I've seen this over and over and over again. I get a lot of people complaining about their board, and when I push back and I say, have you trained them? Do they know what they're supposed to do? Any of that, I get crickets, and they actually stop talking to me sometimes because it's like, oh, she's one of those. So you must educate your board and develop a strategic plan for their involvement. You just can't keep asking them to solicit their list. First of all, it's not strategic and it does not motivate your board members or increase their willingness to be involved. I will tell you that I serve on a board of directors, and even though I do this for a living, and they said, we're having this fundraiser, and I was actually the chair of the fundraiser, and I'm like, okay, so just reach out to the people you know. As soon as you say that, your mind goes blank. So coming from a board member to you, you can't just keep asking them to solicit their list without some strategy behind it. You have to help them get those juices flowing, get to understanding the why, all of those things. And for 20 plus years, served in a nonprofit organization. And for 15 of those years, I was the CEO of that organization. And using a strategic approach with the board, I was able to increase my operation budget from 750,000 to 2.5 million a year and maintain that. It's one thing getting there, it's another thing to maintain it. And I was able to complete a $12 million comprehensive capital campaign. And I started and grew an endowment to 500,000 and had 180 days of cash reserves. And my organization was located along the Mexico-Texas border in the third poorest county in the United States. So I put that there to say that this works. You have to focus. And I know sometimes as nonprofit professionals, we're kind of like all over the place and the year goes really fast and you don't know where to put your energies. But I'm telling you, if you put your energies in ensuring that your board is a powerhouse, then that is going to roll the ball for all types of fundraising. Because at the end of the day, people say they have a fundraising issue, but sometimes I truly believe it's a board development issue. So today, with this webinar, you will leave with tips on how to train your most fundraising averse board members to be a part of the fundraising process. That board member that says, I will not ask for money. That is not what I do. If you follow this process, they will be involved in fundraising, and they will sometimes be one of your biggest fundraisers. I'm going to share with you 3 ways to transform your board into a fundraising powerhouse. And when all else fails and you've done everything that you can, how to transition non-contributing board members off the board gracefully. Because you do want to transfer them off gracefully. You want to treat everybody with respect. So you're in the right place today. And this training is perfect for you if you want to create a board culture where the importance of giving and helping fundraising is clearly understood and embraced. You want to educate your board on what it means to be involved in fundraising as a board member. And you want to develop a board process that absolutely will raise the level of board giving. And I'm going to say this, and I say this at all of my trainings, that you're worth it. I want you to close out your emails. I want you to close the 20 browsers that you have open. I want you to close the door. I'm going to ask that ask the kids not to kill themselves in the middle of summer. Some of the kids might be home if you're working from home, and just give yourself the next hour to focus. And if you have pets like I do, and I have one dog and one cat, Gizmo and Peanut Butter. And sometimes they come in here when I'm doing my webinars and they start running around. Close them out too if you have those pets. But before we get started, this presentation is being recorded. You can chat any questions that you have, and I will answer them in a formal Q&A at the end of the presentation. And again, I just want to remind people, to ensure a seamless webinar, check your internet connection and close all the other tabs, because that will slow down the webinar on your end. So I am Sabrina Walker Hernandez, and I thank y'all for being here. I studied political science and public administration, and I obtained a nonprofit management certification from Harvard Business School. For the last 25 years, I've worked in the nonprofit industry in direct services, operations, and executive leadership. 2018, I was diagnosed with cancer and felt that I needed to retire. And since then, I've been helping small nonprofit staff and board build relationships that convert into more donations. So people always ask me, why do I leave the cancer diagnosis in there? Well, I leave the cancer diagnosis in there because that was the whole reason I started my company, Supporting World Hope. Being a nonprofit CEO, executive director, a founder, is resource development. It's very stressful, right? And so stress can lead to ill health. And so I thought, if I can help people get off that hamster wheel of fundraising or working with their board, because working with the board tends to bring on a lot of stress too, then that's what I want to do. And that's the whole mission of my company, is to help nonprofit professionals like yourself that are overworked, overwhelmed, and often stressed out. There is no point for you to reinvent the wheel. I've done this successfully, and I really want to share that knowledge out to you. So what I do is I do workshops, I do board retreats, I do webinars like this. I do them free, but I also do them customized for your nonprofit organization. I do coaching, and I do consulting. So I'm using everything that I've learned over the 25 years to get you there faster. And I always want people to have the vision of where they want to go. So I want you to imagine a day when all your fundraising systems are in place and you're raising money even when you're sleeping. I want you to imagine a day when someone comes up to you and say, I love the work that your nonprofit is doing, and I'd like to write you a check right now. And imagine a day when fundraising has become easy and fun, and you always have enough to fund your mission. That is where I want you to be. And I want you to imagine that day, because that is what it's all about. You got into this business to help people. And there is one thing that I know in building a powerhouse board. It all starts with recruitment. And a lot of people don't like to hear that, but you have to front load your process. It starts with recruitment. So the process of turning your board members into fundraisers begins at the beginning, which is recruitment. So it's like creating a winning sports team, and you recruit the talented players that fit the team. And then you can start kind of strategizing about spreading your message through your community. That's why people pay so much for those key players on those sports teams. But when you are putting together your team and you are doing recruitment, you have to be very aware of the method that you're using for recruitment. So I want you to take a moment, and I'm going to describe the two methods. And I want you to honestly, to yourself, say which one are you using and make a change if it is needed. So what recruitment method are you using right now? So are you basing your board membership on friendships, family, partnerships, relationships? Kind of always call it the good old boy or good old gal, where you're not really evaluating the future needs of the organization. Really, that doesn't even come into play. I call that the Bubba theory. When you put your mama, your uncle, your cousin, my friend on your board. I actually had someone tell me, I have my mom and my best friend and on my board because I can control them. That's really not what you want to do if you want to have a thriving nonprofit. If you want to have a powerhouse board, you cannot use the Bubba theory. And I will tell you why you can't use the bubble theory. I'm going to take a moment to tell you why. Because your board is your force multiplier. You are one entity and you have a circle of influence. And so when you are fundraising or reaching out, you reach out to your circle of influence, which is your friends and your family, your co-workers, your church members, whatever it is. That's your circle of influence. When you bring on your friends or your mother or your children, I had someone who had their children on their board who are 5 years old, made no sense to me. But when you do that, who's their circle of influence? Where is the force multiplier there? Their circle is the same as your circle, or they don't have a circle, especially if they're 5 years old, right? So you have to understand that, sorry, you have to understand that you have to make sure that the board that you want is a force multiplier. So there has to be some diversity amongst that board. And when I'm talking about diversity, I am talking about who they know. So you don't want everybody to know the same people. So when you're talking about the method of recruitment, you want to do smart thinking. You want to establish a solid individual board that requires an in-depth look at what the board needs as a whole. Again, you want a highly diverse, dedicated group of individuals that have different circles of influences. Okay, so that's what makes a good board. So start with that method, and it's okay. I see a comment here that they didn't have a complete understanding of board recruitment. They started off small, and they essentially refused to give a fundraise. I see that. It's okay. There's always the reset button. Reset. Your bylaws dictate when terms expire if they are not on board for fundraising. We're going to talk about fundraising because everybody thinks that fundraising is about asking for money, and it's a little bit more than that. And we're going to get into that as well. But that is okay. You can reset. That is what this training is for, to give you the information so you could be like, aha, now I know what I need to do. And it's a process, and it's going to take time. It is not a magic bullet. It is this is what I want for my board. What people have those characteristics, who am I going after, and what plan am I going to get to those people that I need? So first thing is method. What is your recruitment method? The next thing is, what process are you using for recruitment? Do you have a application in place? Do you have a nomination committee in place? Are you interviewing the candidates? During the interviews, are you setting the expectation of board giving and fundraising? You don't want to bring them on your board without talking about that first, because you will get pushback. If you're like, oh my God, I'm not going to say anything about fundraising or board giving until they come on the board, you miss the boat, because they are going to give you pushback. And then you have a group of people that are resistant. So they need to know before they get on your board, as a part of the interview process, and as a part of the conversation, that there is an expectation for board giving and board fundraising. And will you lose some people? Yes, you will. But those are the people that you didn't want to have on your board to begin with, because it's like pushing a rock uphill if they do not have that expectation of board giving and fundraising. And then, is there a signed board agreement with clear expectations around fundraising? So those are the questions that you have to ask yourself. So number one is, you need to set expectations early, and you need to discuss them often. There needs to be clarity when it comes to expectations of board members. We don't talk about board, this is what traditionally happens. We don't talk about fundraising during the recruitment process, or we skim over it because we have a fear that we're going to scare them off. I would say, don't skim over it. You want to, if they're not right for your board, if they're not going to help you with the mission, if they're not going to fundraise, then they're not a fit. Also, what we don't do is we don't include a board job description. And we don't assess, how effective the board is being. So organizations that are most successful in engaging their board members in fundraisings, they set the expectation early. That means they talk about it during the recruitment process, and they also talk about it during the board orientation, and they revisit those expectations regularly during board meetings, so that board members hold themselves and one another accountable. So if you're meeting monthly, am I talking about it every month? Perhaps. Or you develop a system where you just, at the top of my agenda, every board packet that we had, at least once a quarter, we would put in there a chart of where the goal was for each board member and where they were towards that goal. And not only did we put where they were towards that goal, we also, we tracked their attendance to meetings and things like that. But we made it fun, because what happens is, if they hit their goal, then we had another board member that took them out for this nice steak dinner. Collectively took us all out for a nice steak dinner at a very nice exclusive restaurant. So people were striving to get there. You do have to sometimes provide incentives or try to make it fun, but don't skim over the fundraising and giving because you're afraid of losing a candidate. Let me just say, then that's not the right candidate for your board, because you need someone that's there. You deserve to have someone there to help you along that mission. Because again, as I said, it is stressful running a nonprofit, and you don't need to add to your stress by having board members who's not there to support you. So with that in mind, I'm giving a document alert for you. That document alert is that I will be uploading at the end of this presentation a board expectation form, and that board expectation form can be a jump off for you. You can take it as is or customize it for your needs, and it basically outlines what the board member is committing to up front. I will host a house party. I will give this much money. I will raise this much money. I will be involved in this special event in this way. I will do this many thank you calls. I will do this many cultivation moments. So it has that expectation up there. So it's no surprise. And I would even put it in my board recruitment packet so that they have some idea. Don't be afraid to be professional. Have that board interview packet, have that process where, you know what, my organization is important. And because my organization is important, and because we are helping the homeless or helping children or clothing those who don't have clothes, whatever your mission is, we deserve the best people. We deserve those professionals. And as a part of this process, there is an interview, there is some expectation, there is a process to serve on this board. You just can't walk on and say, you know what, I want to be on this board. Or you just can't have someone that currently sits on your board say, hey, I know Susie, she's in Rotary with me, she's a great girl, why don't we just have her come onto the board? No, there's a process in place. You know what your gaps are. You know what you need. You know if you need someone that's strategic, visionary, or, you know, has marketing skills. You will know this already. So you're going to be very strategic about who you place on your board. Don't get desperate and fall back to the bubble theory. It's going to make fundraising so much easier. The other thing that's going to make fundraising so much easier that most people don't realize, that fundraising is more than asking for money. People hear fundraising and they go straight to the ask. And that is only 5% of the fundraising process. So you need to understand this, and your board needs to be educated on this. And when you're talking in the recruitment interview, or if you are starting with the board that you have, and that is okay, and you're starting the education process, you are speaking this. So there are 5 stages to fundraising, right? Stage 1 is identifying. When we're talking about identifying, that means identifying the people who, a list of names, or the people who your mission that give in the community. And how do you do that? People always ask, how do you identify people? Well, you know, how do you identify people? You look at the Rotary roster. I go through those social magazines and I see who what companies have sponsored other events. I look at the newspaper. I do have conversations with other board members. Those are the informal ways if you don't have a budget. If you have a budget, you can do a wealth screening. They cost about $2,000 or so, where you provide a list of names and addresses, and they'll kick back the information to you that says, this person is a B, C, or D, right? What does that mean? If they're A, they might be worth millions of dollars. If they're B, they might be worth $500,000. C, 250,000, so forth and so on. So you identify a list of prospects, right? That's 10% of the process. And don't say we don't have those types of communities. We don't have those type of people in our community, because let me tell you, third poorest county in the United States, and we had an A person, which was worth millions. And what did that do? I identified them, and then we qualified them, and then we went to cultivation. So identify, 10%. Then you qualify. Okay, qualify means, do they care about my mission? If I'm youth services, or is youth services their passion? Or is it animals? Or are they really passionate about veterans? Are they really passionate about the homeless? Does the mission that I have resonate with them? And so you qualify them. And that's about 10%. And then 60% is cultivation, which I absolutely love. It's building the relationship. It's getting them on the phone. It's taking them out to lunch. It's doing those discovery questions, finding out about the donor, building that relationship, becoming their friend, learning about them, giving them the opportunity to share with you what makes them tick. What makes them passionate in the community? What do they want their legacy to be? What do they want to support? And then that's 60%. So 60 plus 10 plus 10, that's 80%. So we have talked about 80% of fundraising, and we have not asked for money. And most people will disregard the whole fundraising process because of stage 4, which is the ask, which is only 5% of fundraising, right? So those board members who just refuse to fundraise, they're refusing to fundraise because of 5%. There's many roles that they can play in that fundraising process, but they have to know what those roles are. You have to know what those roles are, and you have to be able to communicate with them. So the stage 4 is the ask, 5%. That's it. And most of the time, what happens is on those visits, I think that all visits that are major gifts, and for me, every organization, a major gift is different. For me, a major gift in my organization, well, this is how most people define a major gift. Most people define a major gift is when they get that check in the mail and they screaming and they have to go and tell someone, oh my God, we just got a check for whatever amount, right? That's what you consider a major gift. And all major gifts, I truly believe, deserve a face-to-face visit. And so that is what the ask is, that 5%, doing those face-to-face visits, whether it's $500, $1,000, $25,000, whatever that is for you, designating some time where you go and you make that ask. The board members come along with you. They need to be there because of credibility. But most of the time, they're not going to be the one that utter the phrase, will you consider a gift of $1,000 to my nonprofit, right? Because that fear. But as a founder or a CEO or a paid executive or whatever your title is, that is your job. Their job is to be there as your sidekick or your wingman to lend credibility to the process. And in lending that credibility, they have to be able to say, I give to this organization, and not just my time as a volunteer, but I also give my finances. Board members should loudly and proudly say that they give their time, their talent, and their treasure to the organization. Time, talent, and treasure is what the board members should be loudly and proudly saying. And then stage 5 is saying thank you. That is 15% of the fundraising process. We as nonprofits are horrible at saying thank you. I don't know why. We get the gift and you're like, okay, we got the gift. Now let's just leave them alone. Let's leave them alone. And then what happens is you leave them alone 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. 4 months go by, you haven't said thank you, you haven't, or you just sent one thank you card, and it was not even a card, it was an email, and you left them alone. And then it'll come around to Christmas again, and I ain't heard from you, and now you're sending me requests for more money. Do you think I'm going to give you more money? You have not recognized me or stewarded me or shared the impact of what my first gift did. So why would I give you a second gift? And that's why nonprofits are constantly on that hamster wheel of fundraising, because we don't do a good job at saying thank you. And so that's where your board members come in. Give them choices, ask, and then tap into their strengths. You know, there are some things that are just non-negotiable. 100% of your board members should be making a personal gift to your organization. To me, that is non-negotiable, because how can you go out and ask other people for money if you are not giving money yourself? That is hypocritical. Now, are you going to find those that have a different theory than I? Yes, you will. All I can speak to is this is what I used to raise my budget from 750,000 to 2.5 and do a $12 million capital campaign, create an endowment and a cash reserve. There was an expectation that all board members were going to give. And not just board members, myself was included. I did not ask my board to do anything that I was not willing to do myself. The other thing is, when we're talking about giving them choices and tapping into their strengths, is understanding that fundraising process that we just went over. You need to offer them a range of various options. Do they want to participate in the identifying and the qualifying, being a door opener. Do they want to participate? What are their strengths? Are they cultivators? Will they build great relationships? Are they good at saying thank you? Are they good at the ask? And I had a board of 21 people, and I had 2 or 3 fearless ladies that were not afraid of the ask. Everybody else was. So know that up front. And then I had a board member who said, I'm not going to ask for money. I refuse to ask for money. That's just not what I do. And I had a choice. So I was like, well, what will you be willing to do? And she says, I'll introduce you to people all day long. So she was my identifier, and she was my qualifier. And she introduced me to people, and those relationships turned into $1 million relationships. And she got the credit for that. Whereas if she was willing to ask for money, right, she might have just asked for $5,000 and left millions of dollars on the table. So just by her opening the door, we were able to get a $250,000 grant because the person that she opened the door to had a personal airplane at their disposal, and they actually flew me to a grant foundation that had actually said no to the grant, and we actually set up a meeting, and they flew me there, and after that meeting we walked out with a $250,000 check. So that company that she introduced me to uh, placed board members on our board, and each of those board members were responsible for raising $5,000 each. So don't disregard people simply because they won't ask for money. There's many roles that they can play. You know, thanking the donors with phone calls and handwritten cards. That's a part of fundraising. Remember, that's 15% of the fundraising process. So if you have a board member who's willing to pick up the phone and say thank you for the gift that you made, or board members who's willing to do handwritten cards to every donor that comes through your door, that's 15% of the fundraising process. That is their strength. Lean into their strength. You know, if they're willing to represent the organization in the community by speaking or attending a third-party event, they're out there identifying and qualifying different donors. Or they're willing to join you on a donor visit. Remember, they're your co-partner, your wingman in the ask. Or if they're willing to act as a host or a greeter at an event, hosting a house party, you know, those are their strengths. Lean into their strengths. Do not disregard them because of that 5%, because 20% is identifying and qualifying. 60% is cultivating. 60% is cultivating. And 15% is saying thank you and recognizing. So if I can stress anything to you about building a powerhouse board, is lean into their strengths. Walk away from your capacity to hold on to that 5% of the ask. That is only 5% of the whole fundraising process. You're stressing yourself out, and you're not getting the best from those you have surrounded yourself with as far as your board, because you're so focused on that 5%, or you are equating their value to that 5%. So I'm going to ask you to change your mindset just a little bit. Okay. So, and I want you to acknowledge that most board members just don't know what to do. That is just common. And so what your job is, if you are a CEO, founder, or executive director, or development person, your job is to make it easy for them. So what am I talking about when I say make it easy? I'm talking about give them scripts, give them social media posts, give them sample letters, give them emails. So if you want your board members to make thank you calls, then you should provide them with everything that they need to make them successful. They should get a toolkit. And that toolkit should include a thank you script. Pretty basic. Hi, my name is Sabrina, and I am a board member with ABC organization. I see here that you just gave a gift to our organization in the amount of XYZ, and I'm calling to say thank you. This script doesn't have to be that complicated. You're going to give them tips on making an effective thank you call. That means smile when you're talking, right? That means if you don't get a person, you still leave a voicemail. And if you have their cell phone number, you can follow it up with a text. Most people hear that conversation and are like, thank you. No one's ever called me, or I rarely get calls. This sets your nonprofit apart. And there's some who actually might want to have a conversation. They might ask them questions. So you make sure your board members have a frequently asked question document. So if that person on the other end asks a question, then they'll be able to answer it. And then you want to just give them a brief fact sheet um, about the organization, and you want them to shoot you an email that says, hey, I did talk to Sabrina. I said the thank you. This is the information I gathered from that call, or I left her a voicemail. That is the toolkit, but you have to make it easy for them. And the reason why you're making it easy for them is because just like you, they're busy. But this is, especially if you're a paid CEO or executive, this is your job, right? And if you're a founder, even more, you want this to succeed. And so you have to put the effort in. And it can't just be, well, I told them what to do and they just didn't do it, and get frustrated with them. No, you have to script it out. You have to give them the toolkit. You have to make it so easy for them that it's just something that they are willing to do because you've given them all the tools. Now, does that mean I've given them all the tools and they're going to do it? Sometimes, but oftentimes you just follow up, or you lean into their strengths. This is very critical. Lean into their strengths. You know of your board members who will follow up and who won't. So don't give the people who don't follow up thank you calls. Just don't do it, because you know they're going to forget and they're not going to make the thank you call. And that's not going to set your organization apart. So you have to know your board members and lean into their strengths, okay? Some other best practices that you're going to do is you are going to educate them. Most of the people that you bring onto your board, they don't have fundraising experience. We don't grow up, at school, you might have did sold some popcorn, or if you were in church, you might have sold some stuff. But most of us, we don't grow up with fundraising experience. But you can turn your board members into exceptional fundraising by offering them ongoing board training. And it starts with board orientation. You recruit your board members on, do a board orientation. That board orientation will give them highlights on your program. Let them know what your mission is. Let them know what your operating budget is. Remind them of their fundraising requirement. Remind them of what they need to do, and share what your goals are, your strategic plan, all those things like that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that during your regular board meeting that you cover some fundraising topics. You're going to designate 20 minutes of your board agenda to board education. It is frustrating to get on a board and not have an orientation, because what generally happens, and I'm telling you firsthand from experience, what generally happens is you sit there and you're afraid to say anything because you don't know what happened before and you don't want to sound dumb. So you kind of sit there and you just observe. And it takes you about a good year to figure out what is going on if you don't have an orientation process in place. So we're going to cut that learning curve by having a board orientation. And we're going to cut that learning curve about fundraising. In the orientation, you're going to talk about, this is how we see fundraising. And you're going to go over it. 20% identification, qualifying, 60% cultivation, 5% is the ask, 15% is saying thank you. You're going to set that tone right up front. So educate them. Orientation, make sure you have some type of education happening in your board meetings. And if you want to see a sample calendar of a board education calendar, you guys now are on my a part of my VIP resource library. And you got a password when you joined, and you can go in there and you can actually find a recruitment packet, and you can actually also find a sample board education plan. So keep that in mind. You're going to give them updates. So keep your board members in the loop. If you're conducting a fundraising campaign, you need to remind them of the goals. You need to encourage them to keep pushing, and you need to celebrate the wins with them. If you want certain behaviors to be emulated, highlight those behaviors in your communication. So this can be used to encourage other. Consider a mid-month email blast highlighting board member engagement. So I did this, and mine was called Board Buzz. It was really a concise, fact-based email that spotlighted board participation in 4 areas that was important for me. You pick your areas. Mine was mission, board development, fundraising and resource development, and staff development. It was not complicated. When I talk about it, it was just subject line, board buzz, and then I divided it up into those categories, and I said, thank you, board member 1, board member 2, and board member 3 for attending a consultation that helped us develop an individual giving and public relations plan. This consultation was funded by the One Star Foundation in the amount of $5,000. So what am I doing? I'm letting the other 20 plus board members know, 18 because I had 21 board members know that, hey, these 3 board members gave their time beyond the board meeting, and they met with this foundation. And not only did they meet with the foundation, they're also helping develop a individual giving and a public relations plan. So the whole goal is to make sure that other board members knew it's not just about coming to the meeting. It's also about getting involved in these things. And so and then I did it for each topic. Here's the mission. If someone volunteered, thank you, Ella, for volunteering with the kids today. They truly appreciate it. So forth and so on. Thank you, Joey, for bringing in that $5,000 check from ABC Company. So I hope you get what I'm saying. Once a mid-month, in the middle of the month, so that people can see that, oh, other board members are producing outside of this board meeting, 1, and oh, that's something I didn't even know that we could do and we get credit for. So keep that in mind. The other thing is you're going to give them stories, right? So begin your board meeting agenda with a mission moment. It only takes up about 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes of the agenda, but I always round it up to 5 minutes. You can have a client tell their nonprofit story to your board right at the top of the board meeting. And if you don't have a client available at meeting time, you can use a video testimonial, and the goal, let me stop right there with the video testimonial. Some people say, well, I work with battered women, so I don't want to have them come in, and that's confidential information. So I always tell people you got to get creative, especially when you're dealing with confidential information. Tell the story from a different perspective. Tell the video story or the testimonial from the perspective of that bag that's sitting by the door, that you pack when you are just ready to leave, and you've been packing it and it's been sitting there. Tell the story from that bag. I worked with someone that was a homeless shelter, and they moved people from homelessness to housing. And I said, tell the story from the box. If you don't want to feel like you're exploiting your client, then tell the story from the box. I used to live in this box, right? Now you show this box transforming from a home to actually a moving box that contains items that is going into a home. And if you play that at the top of every board meeting or a different version of that, that is going to remind your board members of why they're there, and it's going to give them stories. It's going to connect them to the purpose of your organization, to the mission, and they're going to get real life stories that they can share out into the community, making them great ambassadors and advocates for your organization, which is fundraising. So the other thing that you're going to do is you're going to give them applause. I was horrible at this. I will be the first to admit that I took my board for granted oftentimes. But at the end of the day, your board of directors is a group of volunteers and donors. So make sure you thank them, acknowledge their accomplishments, and encourage their efforts to support your organization. So I, like I said, was horrible at this. So that made me put more effort into it. So celebrate with them, send them birthday cards, celebrate their birthdays once a month. If somebody's birthday, we will bring in a birthday cake at the board meeting. If someone did something very exceptional, we made sure that we acknowledge them. If they hit their goals, we made sure that they were acknowledged. So you have to cultivate and build that same relationship with your board that you build with your donor. Get to know what makes your board member tick and lean into their strengths. So make sure you give them applause. And if you know that you're not good at that, put even more effort into it, because I was not good at it. I took it for granted. So the moral of the story is do everything you can to make board participation in fundraising as easy and as fun as possible. So when you've done all that and you still have those board members that ain't doing nothing, that's kind of slowing you down, what do? How do you say bye, 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 bye? This is how you're going to say bye, bye. The most common reason for wanting to remove a board member is they're not attending the board meetings, or they're just not active, and you've done everything you can. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to do a personal intervention. So it's going to be a one-on-one informal conversation between that person and the board chair, right? And you're going to make sure everything's all right with them. Is something personal going on? Is there a reason why you can't attend the meetings? All those kinds of things. And just tell them, board membership is critical. We cannot pass we can't get quorum if you don't show up. We can't approve things if you don't show up. So you need to have that informal conversation. That's your board chair. Your board chair or board leadership should be having that conversation. But if you don't have a strong board chair and you're the CEO and you have a strong CEO, then they can have that conversation, but it really should be the board chair. And also, you're going to make sure that your bylaws have something in it about 3 consecutive absence. Most bylaws have a 3 consecutive absence rule to vote out board members if they miss 3 meetings. And if you don't have it, I consider that you add it to your bylaws. Another way to say goodbye is the leave of absence. Make it possible for individuals to take a leave of absence from the board. A leave of absence can be because of health reasons, because of work, or other reasons, and a board member can take 6 months off because of disability leave, or 3 months off because they just got a new position, or they're busy at work. And you can either keep them on the board formally, but not expect them for meetings, or you can have them resign for the purposes of quorum. Either way that you choose to do it, or your board chooses to do it, the leave time counts towards their board term. So this is what I'm saying. So you have someone that's in a 1-year term, right? And then they take 6 months leave. That doesn't mean they serve for 1 year and 6 months. That means they still serve for 1 year and 6 of those months was leave. So at the end of that year, they're still gone if that's what you choose to do. So keep that in mind. The other thing that kind of helps you say bye, bye, bye is term limits. Most boards establish not only board terms, but they also have term limits. And so make sure that you have some type of term limits in your bylaws. For example, one of the things that worked for us is if there was anyone that was new that came onto our board, they automatically went into a 1-year slot, because even though we went through the recruitment process and we did the board orientation and we did all that, we still got people on our board that were there because they were running for some type of political office and it wasn't really about the mission, right? And so we put everybody new into a 1-year slot, and if they did not perform the way that we needed them to in that 1 year, we just said, thank you for your service and your term is up, right? So term limits can be your friend. And then if you get in a situation where this is a powerful person, so I don't, we don't want to have them leave because of 3 consecutive absences or whatever the reason is, you just say your term is up. Thank you for your service. You plaque them and you thank them. That's what we call them. You plaque them and you thank them. So the other way to say goodbye is impeachment. Uh, and we've heard a lot about impeachment these days, but that is also could be a part of your organizational bylaws. And I suggest, if you do not have a way to vote out board members, you need to add this to your bylaws. Before a person becomes a problem, right? And basically, a board member can be removed by 2/3 vote of the board at a regular scheduled board meeting. And that could be placed in your bylaws. So that's after you've done all you can, right? That's even before we talk about a disruptive board member or a non-disruptive board member. This is not going into that. I have a whole nother training on that. But this is just the basics, right? So when you're talking about saying farewell to a board person, I want you to keep in mind you are going to treat all current and past board members as loyal and valuable donors. So you want to treat them with respect. You want to keep in touch, and you want to use stewardship moves to engage them around the calendar. What are stewardship moves? Moves, that's the recognition. You want to make sure they know about the impact, what's going on with the organization, and you want to honor their time and energy during the offboarding process from your board. Some people, a best practice, and it's not a part of this training, but I will put it in here as a caveat, is to do exit interviews with your board members to see, why they're leaving, or what can you do to improve the board experience for those that are coming up, things like that. And then what I'm going to do to help you is to give you a sample letter for board service, board renewal, board reminders, and removals, so that it is a process that you don't have to think about, that you can tweak those letters and get that process done. So today I promised you tips on how to train your most fundraising averse board members to be a part of the fundraising process. I said I was going to tell you 3 ways to transform your board into a fundraising powerhouse, and I think it's here 7, and how to transition non-contributing board members off the board gracefully. Hopefully you found that to be beneficial. You have 2 choices, right? So you can go down that Google it. I call it the Google it rabbit hole, where you can go find all these documents and do things by trial and error. Or you can do the fast track and engage your board in fundraising by referring back to these webinars and jumping on a call with me. And that's how I can help. I have set aside some time in the next 72 hours to speak with you personally about how you can apply these ideas to your life today. So whatever it is, your biggest challenges is in fundraising and board engagement, I've seen them and I've overcome them in the 25 years that I've been doing this. And I have fundraising strategy planning sessions. And in those sessions, we do 3 things. We get a clear goal, we get some clarity, we overcome some of the biggest objections, and we create a strategy to address your biggest challenge. And there is no cost to you. Okay, because that is the first thing that people ask. And who is this for? It is perfect for you if you're the one recruiting the new members. If you're a CEO or founder or a executive director and you're the one recruiting the members, If you're the one putting together the strategic plan because your board doesn't even know enough about what the organization does or what they're supposed to do, so all they say is whatever you think is fine, then this is for you. This call is for you. This call is for you if you got big plans. In fact, you got much bigger vision for your nonprofit than where you're at now, and you're ready to go. And it's, you want to add staff, you want to eliminate your waiting list, you want to expand programs, you want to kick off a capital campaign, but the board you have now is holding you back, and you're feeling overwhelmed and stressful, and you know something has to change, and you're always dragging that board along for the ride, then this call is for you. If you want to know how to get your board members involved in fundraising, then schedule this call. And you're saying to yourself, it's for you. If it's just me and I don't even know where to start, this is overwhelming. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I'm passionate and I'm mission driven to help nonprofit professionals like yourself. I also know how I've been able to help others like you who are struggling with their board and fundraising. And I know I can help you in this fundraising strategy planning session. And the fundraising strategy session call is by application only. This is the website here. I'm going to leave this up. It is www.supportingworldshope.as.me/breakthrough call to schedule. I will send out a link in the replay as well for you. But this is how you would set up those calls. And this is Emily. I've talked to Emily. She was struggling with her board and fundraising. She texted me back after I called. She emailed me back after we had our call, and she says, I have great news. I called one of our longtime board members to ask him to give and to be a cheerleader for board contribution, and he was 100% on board. I'm going to be making an ask to the next board meeting, and I plan on following up with phone calls to board members to check in and gauge their response. And this is Marseille. Marseille says, I didn't know where to start. Having someone in my corner that I could bounce questions off of helped me with my mission, my purpose, really helping me define that niche that I was looking for to help me arrive at a better, clear picture. So I am Sabrina. I am going to I'm going to stop the share so that I can drop the links for those documents that I promised you. I'm going to check the chat to see if there's any questions. Yeah, so when board members, there's a comment here. Our board members have said that their time is their donation. There are some people who will say that, but if that means that they should serve on a volunteer committee. And I know that's kind of been harsh, but they're volunteer. If all they want to do is give time, then they serve on a volunteer committee. As a board member, that is the governing factor of the organization. That is the top of the organization. So as the top of the organization, you do all three. You have to give time. You have to give talent. That means I need your expertise. That means if you are your profession is marketing, then I need you to bring your marketing skills to the door. If your profession is being a lawyer, then I need you to be a lawyer for this organization. You need to bring your time, your talent, and your treasure, which is your money. And so the only way that will happen, especially if your board is who they are, you have one or two options. Get yourself a board champion that agrees with you and slowly change that board and start weeding people out. And then as you bring in new people, you make sure in your recruitment process that those expectations are set up front. I would love to get on a strategy call with you because that happens all the time. They just they don't know what it takes to be a board member. And I can't pay the light bill with time. You can't pay salaries with time. You can't do a lot with time. This is a business. The nonprofit is just a tax designation. At the end of the day, it is a business, and no one would tell you as a business that I'm giving time. You don't want customers coming in and saying, I'm here and I'm going to scroll past all your displays because I'm giving you time in your store. No, you want them to buy something. You want them to be an active participant in the process. And it's the same thing with a nonprofit. So what I am going to do now, because it's 1:05 and I think I did okay. I know I carried y'all a little bit over. But what I am going to do is I am going to drop the sample documents in there and allow you a few minutes to download them. So give me space and grace here so that I can grab these documents. I'm going to upload them as files. So let's do that. More. So no problem. Us walkers have to stick together. So I am going to, does anybody have any questions at this time while I upload these documents? I'm more than happy to answer any direct questions that you have about your particular organization or a situation that you're in. I am also uploading these files for you. If you give me a little space and a little grace, it doesn't matter how much I set myself up not to stumble on this part. I always do. So let me get these documents for you. And the documents that I promised to give to you were the sample letters. So the sample letters are coming now. They are uploaded. Hopefully you can see them. And if you could let me know that you grabbed them. And then I'm also going to give you the board expectation form. Oh, Angel, I think I sent that directly to you. Let me send it to everyone. I apologize for that. Now I'm going to send it to everyone. For some reason, it just picked Angel. So let me upload the file one more time so everyone can have access to it. The sample letter. There we go. And now here we go. Here is the other one. I want to encourage everyone that you deserve to have the best board members. You deserve it. Will it take time? Yes, it will. But you do deserve it. So hopefully everybody got access to those documents. With that, can you speak more to the board buzz messaging? Yes, I sent it once a month. I sent it mid-month. And I sent it around those 4 topics that I wanted to highlight. So you pick what you want to highlight. And basically what I did was, if a board member, I tried to find moments to celebrate board members' involvement, no matter how big or how small their involvement was. Because what happens is a lot of board members think if I just show up to this monthly meeting, then I'm doing my part. But that is not the case. Most of the work happens between the board meetings. So there were a lot of board members who were heavily engaged that other board members were not aware of. So for example, if a board member attended a superintendent meeting with me, then I would put that in my board buzz. Thank you, Angel, for attending the superintendent meeting with me. It looks like we are well on our way to receiving 21st century money. Or if a board member attended any meeting with me, or if a board member bought in a check, or if a board member took a donor out for lunch. Whatever behaviors that I wanted other board members to duplicate, those would be the ones that I highlighted, because oftentimes they don't do it because they don't know. And so it's like giving them a roadmap per se. So that's the way that I would do it. I hope that helps. And let's see if there's another question. I see there's an issue with the iPad. Miss Walker, can you email me your email? Just private message me and I'll send it to you directly. I think that'll be easier for me since you're on the iPad. If no one else has any questions, that is the training for today. I hope you found value in it. I hope that it resonated with you. I hope you set up the calls. The calls are about an hour long or so, and I really do, if I must say so myself, I really do provide good input. So having said